Typically, people who want to die by suicide, they really, really just want their pain to end. I'm encouraging you to take a chance on yourself. You are the person who has the power to utilize your words, the words that are inside of you, and the words that are spoken outside of you. So anyone who feels so discouraged that they feel like they've given up and they don't want to live, what I want to say to you, say words out loud that seem completely opposite to it. And it's not easy to do. What matters is that you're here on this earth for a reason. Please understand, no matter where you are, if you're in prison, if you're in a situation like a relationship and you can't get out of it, you don't know what to do. But I've been there. I know what that's like. When people feel really hurt or victimized, it's very hard for them to hear this. But I'm asking you to trust me, even if you don't know me. What I do want to tell you, one of the biggest solutions is, hey guys, how are you today? This is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. Today I'm going to address a rather serious matter that is an epidemic across our nation, and it is a really serious matter in regard to the lives of people of all ages. And we're going to talk today about suicide. So I am speaking directly to anyone right now who is considering suicide, who has spent time being suicidal in their mind, and has ideas of suicide. I am reaching out to you because recently I had created a reel. Actually, I made a podcast, and part of the reel that was created by the editor, just a little clip of this podcast I did where I was addressing people who had lost someone to suicide. And what happened was this reel went just viral. And it made me see that all across that reel, all of the different people who are commenting, watching, sharing, appealing to the reel about their pain, about their desire to not face life anymore. There was just one message after another of people who had attempted suicide, people who knew someone who died by suicide, people who have really struggled with the thoughts throughout their lives, people who had illnesses that were terminal, and people who just had lost complete hope. I am directly addressing the people that are on there because I have wanted to reach out to everybody, and I can't keep up with the comments and letting people know that there is hope and giving people the suggestions or ways to find to live a life and to give themselves a chance. So today I'm taking an opportunity to speak to everyone that's on that reel, people who are commenting, people who happen to see it. And I will refer to that in the show notes so you'll be able to see which reel I mean. What I want you to understand is that as a mental health professional, owning counseling centers and having had lost my own precious best friend and husband to suicide, I really, really feel for you. I really understand that the experience you're having inside of you and in your mind is real, and that it's a struggle that I want to address. I want to show you compassion and validation for, while at the same time offering you hope. What I have learned about suicide, and I have had thoughts of suicide myself, and I do understand what that feeling is that comes over you when it feels like the only option. It feels like all options have left and you don't have a choice. And I'm going to appeal to you in about 7 ways. I wrote points down because I don't want to forget any of it. So some of it's going to be me just referring to my notes because you matter so much that no matter who you are, whether I know you or don't know you, what matters is that you're here on this earth for a reason, that there's a reason that you were born. The miraculous nature of someone being born is incredible. All the things that have to align for you to be the person who's here now is so incredible. If you just saw the path of how a baby is grows and is born. But what I want to just address is a few things. I do understand that people are born into different environments, different families. They experience a whole host of different things. Some people have a really, really hard life, and some people have an easier life in terms of their externals and who raise them. But the truth is that everybody's meant to be here. We usually determine our value and worth by the people who are giving us messages about our worth. We also measure our worth by the circumstances around us. But when we're programmed from the time we're a very little child, we learn a lot about ourselves. And if the information that you're getting as a little child is negative, or if it's giving you ideas that you're not valuable, that would be programmed into your belief system, which in turn then would draw to you. You would be choosing things that were less than your value, and it would just continue to accumulate over time. So I'm going to tell you a few things about how to help you in these moments when you don't know what to do, when you feel a sense of, the only option is just not to be here. So the first thing is I'm validating your feelings because you have gotten to a point somehow where you have not recognized that there's any other solution. Typically, people who want to die by suicide, they really, really just want their pain to end. They're not necessarily wanting their life to end. They just don't want their life to be like burdened with pain, emotional pain. Um, what it's important to know is that people who become suicidal develop a suicide mind, and that can accumulate over time. And what can happen is if you have not had the experience in your life of really understanding that there's hope, that things can change, you haven't seen evidence of that. And if the loop in your mind just continues to go, the thoughts that are creating your belief system. Remember, thoughts that are repeatedly thought create belief systems within our body, in our unconscious mind, and in our conscious mind that tell us a story that most often, all times, if it's telling you you don't belong here when you are here, it's not a true story. It's an accumulation of experiences that meaning has been attached to. When we're little, when we have a parent who's disappointed in us, or it could go as far as abusing us, or it could go as far as neglecting us, or all the different things that can happen to a child. What happens is that all of that relationship with parents, with siblings, with being bullied as a child turns back into, unfortunately, what we believe about our value. And that then signals the repeated thoughts that continue. And when we have a thought, we walk into a room, let's say, and we believe that we're unworthy or we're not as good as the people in there, we will not see the people smiling at us or the people who are interested in speaking to us. We will only see the person in the corner who looks a certain way, or we will visualize it in such a way that matches what we already believe. Our body believes things based on the experiences and the meanings we've attached to them. And then our mind continues to go and create stories and thoughts about that. 91% of our thoughts are the same thoughts we thought yesterday, which creates the same beliefs and then just supports a story that you're not happy with. So please understand that the number one thing with having a suicide mind is that you want to be able to get to it early enough when you have a thought like, I don't belong here, or you begin to have these thoughts that devalue you, the thoughts that tell you that you're not worthy of life. Those thoughts are thoughts that have been fabricated and created based on, very often, external experiences and also what we perceive as how other people feel about us or the way other people have treated us. One of the key ways to transform that, number one, is to understand step by step. I know it's not easy in the beginning. Incrementally understand that our value if it's embedded in things external, we have no control over it. We have no say-so. So the essential truth to the value of being a human being and being born on this earth is gone because it's dependent on people. It's dependent on places. It's dependent on things that occur or don't occur. It's also dependent on our interpretation of those things. And that interpretation will 100% be influenced by the way you were influenced and programmed as a child, as a baby, you might not even remember, or different experiences you had as you were coming up as a person. And we have to remember that people who treat us badly or people who we perceive as not caring for us, whether they do or don't, that must be removed as the defining factor of if we go on or not. The one thing about being a person who feels unloved, uncared for, or a person who's been abused, I have experienced all sorts of things. I may not look like it on the outside, but I have a long history of abuse and sexual abuse and being neglected and a lot of different things throughout my life, tragedy. And what I have come to understand is that if I look at those things and and they used to determine my worth. I can tell you, I was riddled with shame, didn't feel valuable, didn't feel like anyone would ever really truly care or love me. But the defining factor for me was that I had to somehow, and I continue to work on this, understand that I must go inward and I must also go to my spiritual connection and say, I am the only one who is going to create this life. If I allow what I believe people think or how they feel about me or the way they've treated me, then if I allow that to define me, then I have no life that's in my hands. So the first thing is we need to begin to understand that we can take our life back. Instead of throwing our life away, we take it back. And we say, you know what? No matter what, everything else outside of me that tells me that I have to throw my life away, I'm going to be the one person that's going to stand by me. And it may sound silly, and it did sound silly to me when I heard things like that. People would say in my 20s, they'd tell me, you have to be your own best friend. And I'd be like, that's crazy. How do you do that? Now I understand it. Because when I have me, and I know that I have me in my corner, and I know that I'm going to think well of me, that I'm going to think of ways to make life better, that I'm going to create things with my hands. I'm going to go places where I believe that I can develop relationships that will be life-giving for me. When I know that I'm there, and it takes time to understand it and to rewire your brain to understand that our very best advocate is us, right? And I do believe in a strong spiritual connection. So when you're doing that, then you become free of other people and their opinions and all of that. We have a plague of worrying what other people think of us and then creating a life based on that and limiting our life and not doing the things that really show us our value and our strength. So as I move on and we talk about it's a matter of taking a chance. I'm encouraging you to take a chance on yourself. That even if you've never had the evidence that good things can happen, because sometimes, like I'm speaking to you guys, anybody who's a teenager or somebody who's really young, who hasn't watched that that life can change. Life is always changing. That people who do not have the evidence that things can get better tend to fall into a lack of hope. And then if you're in a family or you're in an environment where you don't have people telling you, hey, this can pass, this can get better, things can change. If you just walk outside your door and then you bump into a person who introduces you to another person, or you go into a store and you speak to a cashier, there's so many different things that can little moments that can happen along your life that can change the whole trajectory of your life. But if you give up, then you give up on those possibilities. You give up on the chance to have things better. The only chance for things to get better is to stick it out. That's the only way to do it. But a lot of people who feel suicidal, not all, believe me, not all, it can be a really quick, like kind of tumbling down into thoughts that just start to take over. And it really is a takeover of the mind. And I want you to really hone in on that. Whether you have been fully suicidal or you've made attempts or you've just thought of it, the one thing that happens is it's a total eclipse of the right thinking. It's an eclipse. And the eclipse is a darkness of fear. It just takes over the mind. It takes over your belief that anything good can happen. There's a scripture that says, hope deferred makes the heart grow sick. And if you think about it, when we lose hope, all of us face challenges and difficulties in some really tragic situations. And believe me, I've been in my share of them. But if the first thought when you have a tragic situation or you just don't see, like, let's say you can't get a job or you don't have money, that's a big thing that causes people to not want to be here. It feels so tragic. But the real thing is, if you recognize that the solution to leave, to die, comes from believing there's no other possibility, that there's no other way for it to change. I hear a lot of people on that reel, on that thread, saying, I'm just tired. And I hear you. I know what you mean. I've been there. It's this like feeling of exhaustion, and it feels like you're trying so hard. And it just feels like there's no real solution. What I do want to tell you, one of the biggest solutions is not trying so hard. And not like, when I say not trying hard, what I mean is instead of experiencing life as a struggle, to just kind of surrender and just look for any little crack, a little thing that's good. It could be that you just get up and walk out and step out in the air and just commit to seeing one thing that's good. It could be a bird in the tree. Well, it sounds silly, but when we open up the door, the little crack to let light in, when we're in a really dark place, it really can be exponential. It can really grow quickly. Just like darkness can shut the light, if you shut all the doors and you shut out the lights, it's so much you can't see the good. And that is what happens to someone who's given up hope. Some people just give up hope and that's it for their lives. Every single thing that happens in our life is dependent on the way we're thinking about it. No matter how bad things are, if we say, no matter how bad this situation is, I have the power and I will make one small decision at a time that will move me out of this, and I will be the architect of my life. I will stop handing my life over to other people's opinions, my own opinion of how they see me, my own interpretation of the things that are going on around me. And I will think about what would bring light and value to me and begin the process step by step to doing one little thing. What I did when my husband died, I I couldn't get away from myself. I couldn't get away from the feelings. So it was like a storm. It was like a hurricane blowing around me. I couldn't catch, or like being underwater and not being able to catch your breath. Like there's no solution because there was nothing I could do to change it. But what I had to do, and I did do, is I had to find my footing. No matter what, I wasn't going to give up under the water. I was going to push through. I was going to be tumbled around, but I was going to say, no matter what, I know I'm going to breathe again. I don't know how, but I'm committed to it. I'm committed to breathing again. I'm committed to living again. I'm committed to trying again. And what I did with that was, it was like day 3 in, and I said, no matter what, I have to find somehow, I have to gain more than I've lost, which seemed like an impossible task. But I told myself, no matter how long this takes me, I will gain things step by step, teeny, nuance at a time. I will build out something of a list of gains that somehow I can use to now build a new foundation and a new life. And I have been doing that all along. And I can tell you, I am evidence that when things seem impossible, I mean, I have felt that way when I was a little girl, that there was no way I would ever have the things that I wanted, that everybody else was going to have them. But me, I was too ugly. I was too, you know, I would think I was fat. I would think I was, dirty. I would think I was like all these different things that were like just, utter shame. And I I would look and I would like see like other people with pretty houses and other people with like situations with their parents that I felt jealous of, that I wish I had. And I believed. And when we feel like the people around us don't love us or don't care for us the way that we want, when we're young, we don't necessarily, we could think it's them. I didn't. I just thought it was me. So what ends up happening when you think it's you is that it's just like there's something wrong with my being. And it's taken me years and years. And throughout my life, I continue to rewrite that story. Every day when I wake up, I actually have practices that I do that it sounds now, there are days that I wake up and I feel really badly. But when I that happens, I have this thing I do. It's kind of like a little it really works. And I say, and sometimes it's hard for me to say it because it's counter to what I'm feeling. But I will say, this day, I get to choose how I feel. And today, I choose joy. Today, I choose peace. And today, I choose enthusiasm. And if I'm tired, I'll say, I choose to be vivacious. I choose energy. I choose life today. I choose to look at what is beautiful and right around me when everything's falling off around me. What I did during that period of time after my husband died, and I committed to that, decision making is powerful and our brains hear it. So anyone who feels so discouraged that they feel like they've given up and they don't want to live, what I want to say to you, say words out loud that seem completely opposite to it. And it's not easy to do. Believe me, I have a hard time saying things that feel opposite to what I'm actually feeling. But saying them out loud, sound waves have power. Sound waves never die. They never end. And they have impact that we do not realize. They have an electromagnetic force, and so do our thoughts. And most people right now, anyone who has given up on life, I want you to understand that that giving up on life is all happening in the mind. It's all the interpretations of life. And I'm not saying that your situations aren't real, they're real. Believe me, I have had real situations. So, one of the things I had to discover for myself, and when people feel really hurt or victimized, it's very hard for them to hear this, but I'm asking you to trust me, even if you don't know me. And what I would tell you is that it is imperative to move away from the victim mindset because then we have no control. We have no say-so over our lives. Even if we've been victimized, the truth is that if we make it our identity, we lose our lives. And it slowly takes away any goodness that we have. So remember, please, that you are the person who has the power to utilize your words, the words that are inside of you, and the words that are spoken outside of you that determine the outcome. If you just test this, I would ask, just even if you could send little comments that you would try this one exercise. Say things that are in opposition to what you feel if they're negative. So, like if you're thinking, I don't belong here, say things like, I belong wherever I am. I belong because I'm here. Every day in every way, I'm finding new meaning for my life, even though it's been hard. I'm not asking you to say things that are so far from what you already believe, but begin to shift. If your thoughts are here and they're telling you to leave, they're not good. They're not on your side. And that's what I want to make very, very clear because on my reel, I said, that people who die by suicide are not, they don't lack, they're not cowards. And the reason that I said that is because I understand that it's not because of that. It's because of this weariness. It's because of a real belief that somehow they're not of value to others. They've somehow lost the truth because their whole mind is eclipsed by darkness, by lies, by just ridicule of themselves, of a complete fear of just moving forward, and that a belief that there's no goodness to come. So please, that is why I say that. I don't say that because I did not mean that it is courageous to die by suicide. It's not. It's giving up on yourself. It's giving up on the life that's been given to you, and it's giving up on you and your opportunity to turn even a hard thing around. What I want to say is anybody who's had a really tragic life, there's a lot of people who've had a lot of series of problems in their life, like big tragedy, trauma, and all of that. We see that at Lager Counseling Services. That's a real thing. But the people who have that, I feel like somehow there's something, you have a bigger weight to carry. You have a bigger weight to lift. So it's like, see yourself as someone who's been given an opportunity to lift something heavier than someone else. And that means that the strength that's going to come from that by lifting this weight that feels impossible. I'm going to try and push a 500-pound rock up a hill that I can't do. What that is, when you're in that place, understand you're given an opportunity to build strength, resilience. Another thing I have found, I never would have known as a little girl going through all the difficulties and hard times that I had and throughout my teenage years, I never would have known that these things were building in me a strength that I could then open up Lager Counseling Services. I could become a therapist. I could help people with eating disorders. I can help people with marital issues and people who are terribly grieving. I never would have known the impact I would have had if I gave up back then. I have story upon story upon story of friends or people who've been on my podcast, people who I know just from being at Lager Counseling Services. Zachary Babcock, he's not going to mind me bringing him up. That guy, man, he was in prison. He lost his dad when he was 7 years old. He lost his sister while he was in prison. This dude made his way out. He had kids, and while he was in prison, he missed their birthdays. I'm probably butchering his story, but what ended up happening, his severe like hardships through being a little boy brought him into hardships in his young adult life. But that man transformed his life. He did not give up. He wanted to. But what he did was, this guy, he's helped all these people. He is an unbelievable father and husband. He helps people create podcasts. He's become an uber successful person, and he is like a beacon of light. Please understand, no matter where you are, if you're in prison, if you're in a situation like a relationship and you can't get out of it, you don't know what to do. But I've been there. I know what that's like. You shouldn't be there. You know you're being mistreated, but you don't know how to leave. You don't know how to get out of it. My early years, if you were going to look up worst boyfriend in the world, that would have been me. I stayed for 4 years. So please understand, there's always an out. There's always a solution. That is one of our highest values here at Lager Counseling Services. There is always a solution. You may not have found it yet, but there is always a solution. If you can base some deep principles into your heart that, one, there is always a solution. Two, I have the power to change my life. Three, no matter what, I'm going to choose myself, and I'm going to choose just for this moment. I'm going to make the decision to do one thing that helps me find light. The thing is, as we go through our lives, there are so many different challenges. Each time we overcome one and we stay, we become stronger, we become better, we become more able to have the things we want. I want you to understand that you right now have the power to break the negative programming inside your body. We all have it. I'm still transforming mine every single day. But I'm speaking to you, the person who is just maybe laying in bed, maybe you're in a basement, maybe you're on a video game, whatever it is. I'm asking you to allow thoughts that could bring life to you back to you. Those thoughts, every thought we think changes the landscape of our brain. If your thoughts are repeatedly telling you you don't belong here, your brain is a goal-driven machine and it's going to follow those instructions. So I'm asking you to give it different information so that it can then follow better instructions. If you tell it every day, I will find the happiness, the purpose, and the life that I'm looking for. I will go one moment at a time and seek out what I want and see things that are beautiful as opposed to seeing everything that I don't want. What we focus on expands. So all the people who have been on my reel and who have commented, who've shared vulnerably from your heart about wanting to die, about making attempts to die, about losing people that you love so much to suicide. First of all, I want to just surround that whole thread, which I do. I do this every day. I go on and I see you. I'm not missing you. And I pray, I put a golden white light all along that thread. And to all the other people who have listened to this podcast, who have any thought of leaving Earth by suicide, I also ask for you to remember something, that one thought leads to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And a thought that you think for 16 seconds, possibly 17, is then going to draw to it another like-minded thought that will draw another one. So the more time you spend in it, the more likely your mind can get clouded and toxic with thoughts of suicide. So this podcast, me speaking to you, is to disrupt that, disrupt the power of those thoughts that are telling you lies about your value and your worth, disrupt the power of your meaning that you're attaching from other people about your worth that's on this earth, disrupt the power of the thoughts that are coming to you that tell you that no one loves you. And if they did, and that you would, that then you would stay. Disrupt that. And I disrupt the idea that this is what I want to really, this is like an encouragement. Hear me on this. Go like this. So many people, not all, some, decide that they're going to show the people who have hurt them. They're going to show the people who have neglected them. They're going to show the people who have abused them that then they die. I'm going to show them by dying by suicide. I disrupt that. I disrupt that with all that's good and right and light and spiritually sound. And I disrupt that. How about you take the thoughts, the abuse, the neglect, the hardships, and you say, I'm going to communicate by making the best life I can. My challenge to you is to say, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, no matter what, I am going to, how about use it for your fight, for your gasoline in your tank? You say, no, you won't take my life from me. I'm going to show you the kind of life and the kind of person I can become. And in spite of how I think you feel about me, in spite of me thinking you don't love me, in spite of you hurting me, rejecting me, and all of those things, I'm going to hone in on me and I'm going to create a life that's going to prove to you my value, and it doesn't even matter what they think. But hear me in this, use that as fuel, as opposed to look at the really seriously, stop for a moment. And if you're thinking, I'm going to show them by dying, you know what you're doing? You're letting someone else, the meaning you've attached to someone else, you're letting a situation, some other thing, you're letting that kill you. You're letting that decide, take away the years ahead that you have, that you could build beauty and have laughter and have a chance. You're allowing the thing that's hurting you to determine your chance at life. Really think about it. I want to honor you. I want to thank you for listening. I ask everybody who's on here, please comment, share. I do ask you for this favor. It means the world to me if we can hold our hands together and we can support the transformation of the suicide mind out of victimhood, out of no hope, out of darkness, and eclipsed a mind of complete fear. If we, there's a book called Fear Gone Wild. Kayla Seckline wrote that book. That book right there, it talks about how the suicide mind takes over. If we can challenge that, anybody who believes in God or has a connection, a spiritual connection, pass this on. Pass this on to people who can stand with me as I support and help people to shift their thinking, shift their minds out of the unbelievable takeover of the brain that happens when someone actually does die by suicide, and the cascading effects it has on the people that love them, even knew them for 5 minutes, and is like, oh my gosh, what can I do? What didn't I do? The turmoil that it leaves behind. I'm asking you to share this with anyone you know who's lost someone, anyone you know who seems discouraged, anyone you know who has just initial thoughts of suicide, ideation. If someone has a plan or if they've attempted it, please, I ask you, I do not monetize my podcast, but what I do ask you for is this, that you would like, that you'd comment, that you'd interact with me, and that you'd share it so we can develop a community and a collaboration to help to change the world as much as we can in the small part of the world we live in. So bless you all, and thank you for being here. And I wish you hope and that you find and see your incredible value on this earth. I just stand with you and I see it before you find it.